Every day, every month, and every season in America, animals across the country cross roads and highways, hop fences and barriers, and navigate human-made obstacles in order to survive. Now, in California, we certainly do love our wildlife, and not just because we are the most biodiverse state in the nation. We regularly hear stories of a new critter that's captured the hearts of Californians and the public's imagination. Perhaps none have reached the level of fame of the beloved P-22. You see the mountain lion here behind me. The iconic mountain lion of Griffith Park, who was known for wandering around the Hollywood Hills.
Well, thank you, Chairman Padilla. One of the really fun things about having you as the chairman and getting to be the ranking member with you is, of course, California is the most populous state, mine is the least, but how similar the problems are. Wyoming is a haven for big game species: bison, elk, moose, pronghorn, mule deer, and many others whose habitat varies by season. Wildlife migration corridors allow these big game species to move between seasonal ranges, of which there are many in Wyoming.
The reality is all of wildlife needs the ability to move. Small mammals, birds, amphibians, invertebrates, plants, and reptiles. Connectivity gives them the freedom to roam and produces benefits. Gene flow, seasonal migration, pollination, foraging. And in a scrambled world because of climate disruption, animals and plants face three basic choices. They can adapt, they die, or they can move. We as people have the opportunity to give them that movement through our decisions.
Intact landscapes that support migration provide important ecological functions and benefit a wide diversity of wildlife, from predators to pollinators. The management, abundance, and quality of our wildlife resources are deeply intertwined with important components of the state's economy, including agriculture and tourism. Nearly a century ago, Aldo Leopold observed that conservation will ultimately boil down to rewarding the private landowner who conserves the public interest. Wyoming is finding abundant opportunities to team up with private landowners whose working lands provide a critical linkage in the migration chain. Through our partnership with the USDA, for example, we know that voluntary, incentive-based programs with built-in flexibility and agility to meet individual landowner needs is paramount.
People get it. The experience people have with our wildlife ranges, but they all intuitively connect with this idea of connectivity. And I see it in three ways as examples. The photo that you had behind you of P-22, the mountain lion, that lion was in the middle of Los Angeles, an apex predator in one of the largest cities in the world, stuck in an island surrounded by roads.
It's more than just animals that you can hunt. Many non-hunted species benefit from high-quality habitat, healthy habitat, connected habitat indirectly. And so the work that has been done for big game is indirectly supporting other species. And that's why so many non-hunting conservation organizations have supported this work over the years. And that's why this work is relevant to the 148 million people who enjoy wildlife watching.
And as governor, I actually named the sandhills crane as our state migratory bird. So it's actually, and we talked a little bit about some of the risks to people when you have wildlife crossing streets and there's car accidents. But Ms. West, you talked about some of the economic upsides, but tourism is another one that doesn't involve hunting, as we get thousands of tourists to come in and watch those migrations. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's actually a really fantastic thing to see.
We've heard a fair amount about successful programs that are focused on big game migration in western states. I want to talk a little bit about eastern states, and Delaware is one of those, although I've lived all over the country. But what can eastern states like Delaware, like my native state of West Virginia, and others learn from what has worked out west?
When the federal government supports bottom-up, locally driven conservation priorities, it can be a wonderful combination that leads to success. What we've seen with big game in the West is a series of federal programs that incentivize state and tribal agencies to do wildlife conservation work. They build capacity when those agencies don't have the staff or expertise necessary, and that has led to significant conservation outcomes. These programs are easily scalable to include additional geographies like the beautiful state of Delaware and additional species. All the programs, you know, with the strike of a pen, you could expand the scope of the work and it would be applicable.
You don't have to have a lion. You don't have to have a grizzly bear to love wildlife crossings. In 2017 in Riverside County in California, we completed the Clinton Keith Wildlife Crossing Project. So it was designed for one particular animal, but now it's supporting butterflies, birds, deer, coyotes, foxes, and get this, the Kino checker spot butterfly, a federally listed endangered species. We thought about it back then for one animal, but we built it and they all came. And I think that's a lesson available to every state when it comes to wildlife crossings.
The habitat loss and fragmentation is one of, I believe, maybe 5 major drivers of global biodiversity loss. And my question would be, how can the study and the conservation of wildlife corridors help threatened and endangered species or prevent species from becoming endangered in the first place?
That by investing in connecting habitat now, you're really preventing the decline of species into the future. It's a proactive step to invest in our species before they become eligible under the Endangered Species Act, and once they're imperiled, it is much more cost-effective, or cost-ineffective, rather, expensive and time-consuming to try to recover them. But if we can look at habitat connectivity and the movement of wildlife species and create that interconnectedness and give species more ability to adapt to changing habitat conditions over time, we're setting them up for future success and we're preventing declines that are very difficult to reverse.
I've lived through catastrophic wildfires, epic biblical drought, and so many things. And I believe this is a nonpartisan issue, corridors, because everyone understands what it means to have safe passage to a safe place. They need an ability to go from point A to point B, safe passage to a safe place, because they're either going to die, adapt, or we can provide freedom to roam. And that's why I think this hearing is so important.
We can achieve great things if we work together is probably the simple message I would leave with you today.
Thank you, witnesses, and I yield back to the chairman with my thanks for this panel of witnesses and this topic. It's timely. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your leadership on this issue.
Thank you, and thank you for your partnership.
We have plenty of partisan issues that we deal with all the time. It's nice to have one that can help draw us together, so thank you.
So my question is this. Think about your audience here. You're talking to the United States Senate, who don't have your level of expertise or your boots on the ground experience on this issue, but want to know what we can do to help you do your jobs better.
I could use your help on 3 things, and then I'll tell you what I wish you had asked me. First, I do think there's value in considering memorializing the secretarial orders in the sense that congressional direction motivates. Second, Ranking Member Loomis, it's not just a money issue, but these are construction projects and they cost.
Yeah.
The bipartisan infrastructure law sent $350 million to the Federal Highway Administration. My department is spending $90 million. We're going to need an infusion of capital when it's warranted. Third, one of the biggest challenges is collaboration between government entities. For far too long, Richard and I have been talking in the wildlife space, and we need to have this conversation with the transportation space. Mm-hmm. We need to be encouraged, cajoled, persuaded, motivated. It's the 2 entities, wildlife and transportation together, that can change this dynamic. Here's what I wish you would have asked me. When would I like to come to Jackson and go fishing with you on the Snake River?
That can be arranged, and I love to fish, even though I'm a lousy fisherman.
too.
But I suspect that is not true. You're welcome anytime, and I would relish the opportunity. Thank you.
By fragmenting migration routes, we endanger the lives of countless animals. We risk decreasing the rich biodiversity of our nation. We undermine our thriving outdoor recreation economy, and we even increase the risk of human life. Because migration patterns will never adhere to state or local or tribal boundaries, it's clear that in order to protect ecosystems and better coexist with the wildlife around us, we need to come together in a bipartisan way to support state, local, tribal, and private landowner efforts to restore wildlife corridors and improve connectivity. And finally, my hope is that after today's hearing, we can take some of the bipartisan momentum around habitat connectivity, incorporate some of the ideas that we've heard today, and come together to move a bipartisan bill that supports voluntary conservation efforts throughout the country. Whether that includes federal funding for state and local research and data gathering, or on-the-ground projects that restore wildlife corridors, bipartisan progress is possible. I look forward to working with any and all of my colleagues who are ready to continue this important work.